Planes, trains, and trucks. Have you ever thought about how things get to you, where they come from? What's this whole industry called logistics? Well, today on Invest in Clayton, you're going to find out about it. Hello, and welcome to Invest in Clayton County today. I'm Calfani Stevens, Executive Director of the Development Authority of Clayton County. Today, we will be speaking with Donna Mullins. Ms. Mullins is owner of Mullins International Solutions and Director of the Advisory Board for the Center of Supply Chain Management at Clayton State University. Welcome, Donna.
Good morning. How are you doing today, Calfani?
I am good. Thank you for asking.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm great. Thank you.
All right. So, before we got started, we were just talking a little bit about you and your background and the fact that you love logistics.
I do. I actually started in this industry right out of high school. I was 18 years old. I worked for an importer. Started as a showgirl at the Merchandise Mart in Atlanta, and then moved out to their headquarters in Marietta, where I did landed cost. Landed cost is where we ascertain what it costs to get a product on the shelf, including the product cost itself, transportation and logistics, any customs duties, any examinations, deliveries, whatever it costs to get it to us so we can sell it.
So it sounds like there's a lot more than picking things up and putting things down.
There is a ton more, and that's a long ton, as a matter of fact. You know, we have a ton, a short ton, and a long ton.
All right.
In logistics, there's a lot more involved than just a warehouse and a truck.
Okay. So because there's so much to dive into, so much to learn about Mullins International, so much to learn about Clayton State University and the Center for Supply Chain Management, we're just going to have a great conversation. We may jump back and forth, but I want to start back at the beginning of what you talked about, because we said there's so much more than picking things up and putting things down, long tons, short tons, international investments, determining the cost of moving a good from one place to another. So let's just take one part of that first part, which fascinates me, something that I hadn't even thought about before as being part of logistics, and that's determining the cost of moving a good from point A to point B. And that's where you started your career. So let's hear a little bit more. Well, the second phase of your career. So let's hear a little bit more about that.
Well, after I had left the importer, I went to work for our customs broker and freight forwarder. Those are entities in the supply chain that arrange for the movement of cargo from point A to point B, and also arrange to have the customs clearance, import and export, ascertaining customs duties, and making sure that the governments, there are 48 of them that regulate import and export of cargo, and making sure that all of them are satisfied so that we can have legitimate, secure, and compliant trade.
All right. So how does one learn how to do that? And once one learns how to do that, what are the job types? I mean, there's got to be so many, because originally I was thinking, oh, this must be an accountant's job, but it sounds like it's so much more than even an accounting job.
Well, there are many entities in the supply chain. We call it a chain because there's a lot of links. We have the grower, the manufacturer, the seller, the buyer, the foreign entities, the freight forwarders, customs brokers, our government entities, our carriers, including our airlines, our trucks, our ocean containers, as well as rail. And then we have, you and me, the end consumer. We're part of the supply chain too.
You said you started on the show floor.
Yes.
And then from there, you worked for a company, and then you got into this. Tell us about your path through the industry.
Oh, well, I fell into it, honestly, and many people do, because only within the last couple of decades has there been any dedication at colleges for supply chain careers. So a lot of us young people have found ourselves stumbling into it because it was just something that happened. Like, for example, I went to work with my aunt at the importer, and then when she left and was going to our broker, I said, well, see if they have a place for me. They created a past due research position. I started researching past due bills. I went from there to being a data entry specialist, from there to being a lead account executive, to supervisor, manager, worked my way up to being vice president of customs brokerage for a firm, and then realized that the next rung that I could take would be an owner. So I bought a small freight forwarding firm, and for 7 years I grew it at 900%. Then I sold it because of some personal health reasons with my mother, and started Mullins International Solutions. So there are vast numbers of opportunities. We say that the logistics industry is a spider web of opportunities.
Okay, so let's learn a little bit more about that spider web, right?
Okay.
Okay, so When you started your company, you said you had bought a freight forwarder. Tell us what that is.
Okay, a freight forwarder is a company who is contracted to move cargo from point A to point B, usually from one country to another. There are domestic freight forwarders, but since we're talking international, we'll discuss that.
Yeah.
So we were a freight forwarder and a customs broker, meaning that we arranged to move the cargo from origin to destination, as well as all of the paperwork and the data entry that was required for the cargo to legitimately enter the United States. We're more on a paperless or a less paper route these days with communicating with our government through the ACE environment. It's mostly data bits and data fields as opposed to paper. But when I first got in the industry, I had a saying that for every piece of pound of freight that moved, a half a pound of paper had to move with it. Because, again, satisfying 48 potential government agencies for an import transaction or an export transaction requires a lot of skill, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of information has to be obtained before one piece of freight can even make its way on a truck.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about the macro of the industry, and we know that it, as you said, it's a spider web. So for everyone who's listening or watching, and they're thinking, "Great, Calfani, great, Donna," but my kid is in high school, and they don't speak French or they haven't taken Spanish or whatever foreign language, and you're talking about international and these 48 government agencies. I mean, just do they have to go to college? Do they need a 2-year degree? How do they get in?
Oddly enough, and in this industry, you do not require a college degree. College degrees are great, but you can start into this industry at an entry-level position and do what is called on-the-job training. One of the things that Mullins International Solutions does is we do compliance training. We also do public training where we offer seminars. And in fact, the next big public training we have coming up is something called the ABCs of Customs Brokerage. The ABCs of Customs Brokerage is a 9-day intense class that prepares the individual to enter into the logistics workforce as someone who basically has 1-year experience under their belt. One of my students, actually several of my students, have said that it's like drinking from a fire hose, but for 9 days we go into some very intense information about what is required for international trade to succeed. And then after the individual has successfully passed the ABCs of Customs Brokerage, they can sit for a nationally accredited certificate called Customs Certified Specialist that's administered through the National Education Institute. By that, it is sort of a certificate that tells the industry, hey, this individual has the knowledge of the experience that 1-year individual might have. And it does help them to jumpstart a career into the international logistics arena. I do not have a college degree. I do not speak foreign languages. I tell folks all the time I speak 2 fluent languages, and that's English and slang. But you do not have to have a college degree, and you do not have to speak foreign languages in order to do international trade. You have to be a skilled individual that is geared to detail and compliance, and you can succeed. And you can even be the president of your own company, just like I am.
All right. That's excellent information. Now, but you don't need a college degree, but you do need training. So let's go back to this ABCs. Mm-hmm. So when is the next ABCs offered, and where do I find out more information about it?
Okay, the next ABCs is going to be offered from June the 10th through June the 20th of this year. We will be doing it in conjunction with Atlanta Career Rise, who is an umbrella under United Way, as well as WorkSource Georgia through the Atlanta Regional Commission, and we partner with Clayton State College of Business. So it will be held in Clayton County. Any Clayton County resident is eligible for a tuition-paid, fully funded opportunity to do this. Tuition is funded through Atlanta Career Rise and through the WorkSource Georgia under the WIOA Act. And the way that you can get involved is you can contact the Logistics Supply Chain Group at Clayton State University, or you can contact me direct, Mullins International Solutions.
All right, and so that is June 10th through the 20th. Mm-hmm. So it's a 10-day. I'm assuming that this is a very intensive course?
Yes, it is.
So these are all-day courses?
They are 8 to 5, all-day courses, yes.
All right. And then so at the end of that, we would be ready to enter the field And how long would we be in the field before we would be ready to sit for that other exam that you talked about?
The customs brokerage exam?
Yes.
That's the mother lode exam there. Most people are in the industry, 2 to 3 years before they start to study for that exam. Now, the ABCs is a class, and then we have the CCS that you can take immediately after the ABCs. And then the customs brokerage exam is something that is administered by the Department of Homeland Security. That is a government certification.
Okay. In just a minute here, we're going to circle back around to Clayton State University, talk about the Center for Supply Chain Management. But before we do that, still staying on this path of training right out of high school and different things, can you give us some examples of individuals that you've worked with and what their path was and where they are now? You don't need to use names, just some examples of what's happened.
Okay, yes. In fact, through the ABCs, we have one young man who was an import clerk here in Atlanta for a very large logistics company. After he passed my class, the ABCs class, and got his CCS, he was then promoted and transferred to Houston, Texas, where he's now the import manager for that branch in Texas. There was a young lady who was working at Macy's making $8 an hour. She took the ABC's class, she passed it, she sat for her CCS, and she is now working for one of the largest logistics firms that we have in Atlanta, making $21 an hour.
Okay. So obviously these are jobs that are paying livable wages.
Absolutely.
It's fulfilling work.
Yes.
It's work that can stretch you and you can learn in it. So what about those individuals who are going to start their career at Clayton State University? So let's transition into that. I finished high school, and I went ahead and I enrolled in Clayton State University or any of the other, fine four-year institutions that we have. What would be the path that I would take to get into the logistics field?
Well, if you are a student currently at Clayton State in the supply chain management program, then you are eligible to apply to participate in the ABCs.
Okay.
Now, I do know that one thing that the center does, that's the Center for Supply Chain Management at Clayton State, is it is open to not only the individuals who are students at Clayton State, but also to companies who are involved in international trade, to the logistics suppliers, as well as importers and manufacturers such as Georgia Pacific, Toto, Honey Baked Ham, and companies like that. We engage with them through the center and introduce them to potential employees through the supply chain graduate program.
Through the supply chain graduate program, I can enroll in the ABCs, but I can also be studying specifically accounting or marketing or logistics is actually courses that are offered at the university level. So I can study any one of those fields, and then I would be entering into the larger supply chain field once I graduate.
Absolutely, because there is marketing in logistics. We've got to have people who are out selling our services. There is accounting in logistics. We bill people and we collect money from people, and we pay companies. There is also IT involved. Everything that we do pretty much is done through a computer source. So therefore, IT, and I am not strong on IT. I know I period, T period. But what I do know is that there is a lot of it that goes on in order for you to be able to send the correct XML format to the government so that they can reply back to you.
All right. And so again, you started a company, you built it up, and so you presumably had all of these different subfields working underneath you.
Yes, sir.
And then we talked about the fact that through the ABCs, you're preparing individuals for these entry-level jobs in the field now.
Yes.
All right. So what are the prospects like? I'm a young grad. I've got my degree, or I'm a junior and I'm ready to declare my major. Sell me on logistics, because I don't want to just sit at a desk and watch the code go by.
Well, logistics jobs in Georgia represent about $20 billion industry, with over 352,000 employees being touched through the logistics industry. So while you're sitting at the desk and watching codes go by, you can also become a sponge and learn more, because the more you learn, the more you can grow, obviously. So even though you may start out, like I did, as a little past due research clerk, certainly, as long as you're willing to continually train and educate yourself and take opportunities to go out to seminars and different institutions that offer more knowledge and more education in this, then you can grow too. So in this industry, I think, personally, I would say you can go as far or as short as you want to go.
$20 billion.
$20 billion industry. Yes, it is.
352,000 jobs just in Georgia alone.
Connected through logistics. Yes, because if you take a look at the airport, those people are doing logistics. When you unload cargo from the airplane, that's logistics. When you book cargo to go on an airplane, that's logistics. When you clear cargo that comes off the airplane, that's logistics. When you dispatch it for delivery, that's logistics. When it goes from the distribution center to the retail store, that's logistics.
Obviously, we're familiar with some of the large branded companies, United States Postal Service, UPS, FedEx. What are some other companies that are right here in the Clayton County area that maybe we just don't know of because they're outside of our pop culture radar?
Well, the great thing about logistics is you don't have to be a Fortune 500 company to provide a service. You can have companies as small as Atlanta Customs Brokers, who has about 15 employees, or as large as an Expeditors, who has about 250 employees, or somewhere in between like a Lisa Reagan or a Future Forwarding, who has about 100 employees.
Wow. All right here.
All right here
right in the
Atlanta.
general area.
And actually, all of them are in Clayton County.
Look at that. Go Clayton. So if is there a place where I can go to find out more about these hidden gems?
Yes, there are a couple of associations here in Atlanta that are geared strictly toward logistics. There's the Atlanta International Forwarders and Brokers Association. There's the Atlanta Air Cargo Association. There's the Atlanta Logistics Connection. We have a World Trade Center here in Atlanta. So there are lots of different avenues where that you can tap into different entities of the supply chain. The World Trade Center, that's where you're going to probably work with some of your consulates, work with some of your bigger banks, the XM Bank, things of that nature. The AIFBA, the Atlanta International Forwarders and Brokers Association, is mostly brokers, forwarders, some truckers, some warehouses, some airlines. The Air Cargo Association really is an export-driven association because just because we import cargo, we also export it. Logistics goes both ways. It's an import and an export process.
All right. So you mentioned an entity that a lot of our listeners probably haven't heard of, and I'd just like to talk about a little bit more. You talked about the Export-Import Bank.
Yes.
So can you tell us what that is and what they do? Because that is a crucial part to this whole industry.
The Export-Import Bank is an entity where importers and exporters can go for funding of their international businesses. So if an exporter is wanting to sell a product overseas, he can go to get funding to help generate the product, manufacture the product, as well as ship the product. Same thing on the import side. If someone wants to be purchasing products from overseas, then they can go to the XM Bank, and the XM Bank will help to funnel funds through, to establish and start that initial international trade movement.
And so Export-Import Bank is actually funded through the U.S. government, correct?
I do believe so, yes.
And so here's another example of the spider web of the of what is supply chain and logistics management, because not only are we talking about accounting, we're talking about underwriting, we're talking about making sure that you are supporting the right types of businesses for growth and all of the computer programming and algorithm that has to go into that.
Right. So, yes, again, the spider web, because, we've got those banks. We also have the consulates that we work with, the governments that we work with. As well, we have, the very, like I told you, end consumer, you and me. We are the reason why international trade takes place. I want something that comes from another country that we can't manufacture or grow here in the United States.
All right. So let's do some myth busting, right?
Okay.
All right. So we hit on one of them. The idea that supply chain logistics jobs are just warehouses. Let's dive a little bit deeper into that. So I've heard a lot of people, say, "Oh man, we don't want any more logistics companies. We have so many." Tell me why. Tell me why that's a myth. Why is it a myth that logistics companies are just warehouses?
I'm not sure. And the reason I'm not sure is because I entered into this at a very young age. And so I have known this spider web for many years in my life. And in fact, when I first started and I became a licensed customs house broker, all of my friends thought that I built houses. This industry is a very hidden but necessary and needed industry that is really only starting to get the attention that it deserves in the past couple of decades. The term logistics is actually a military term that was canned in the 1950s. So we've only been using that term in a very, less than 100 years now. So by the fact that there is so much involved in it, we hear from the military logistics, and so we obviously think, yeah, it's moving tanks, it's moving freight, it's a warehouse, it's a truck, but we don't realize everything that has to go into place before one single piece of freight has been processed to get on that truck out of that warehouse.
All right. So another myth is, oh yeah, logistics. I know logistics. That's all. Those are the trucks that move. And yeah, I've seen those. Why is it more than just the trucks that move? I mean, because we hear a lot about that last mile of movement.
Well, absolutely. The last mile is what gets the cargo to the retailer so that you and I can go to the store and buy it. So the last mile is very important. The first mile is very important. And all of the miles in between are equally important. And all of those miles in between is where a ton of data is being processed in order to allow that cargo to be able to enter into a country and go to the end consumer. We have a saying here in the logistics industry that one country's export is another country's import.
That's a good saying. All right, so this is not a myth buster. This is a question. Myth or reality? We don't have enough truck drivers.
I think myth.
Myth. Tell us about it.
Well, the thing is with the truck drivers, maybe I should change my mind because I've read two stories now that one says myth, one says reality. My personal opinion is that the reason why we don't have sufficient drivers is because of the restrictions that are put on the abilities of new drivers to come on. Most new drivers have to have a year experience before they're able to be set out on the road by themselves. Where do you get a year experience if nobody's willing to give you a year experience?
Got it. So we have a lot of people who are interested in entering, but there's a barrier, right? So there's a barrier to entry for truck drivers. Mm-hmm. All right. How about this myth? Pay isn't good.
Pay's great. In the logistics industry, depending on what your position is, you could be in the six figures anytime. Pay is not great in certain aspects, and it's no secret that warehouses don't pay a ton of money. So usually if you're going to start a warehouse position, you're going to expect that you're probably going to be on the lower side of the pay scale. However, many companies take those individuals in their warehouses and train them and then bring them into office positions and advance and promote them. Through continual education, which is something like the Mullins International offers, then the individual is able to continually grow and learn more about the logistics industry at large. Therefore, they're not in a silo of only one possible position.
All right. So let's try to figure out why we're talking about this today on Invest in Clayton today, right? So there's the Center for Supply Chain Management and Logistics at Clayton State University,
yes,
which is, of course, right here in Clayton County. You're the president of the board. Tell us more about what they're doing to help increase and buoy the logistics industry right here.
One of the things that we're doing is we're connecting with businesses who are in the supply chain, with brokers, with forwarders, with importers, with manufacturers, and connecting them with students who are processing right now through the supply chain graduate or undergraduate program, where these companies can hire individuals who know a little more about logistics other than that it's just a truck in a warehouse.
All right. So if I'm a new logistics company, how do I connect with Clayton State?
Well, the Center of Supply Chain has something we call the Fellows Program. And the Fellows Program is a program where we invite individual companies to join and be a part of the decision-making and shaping of how our individuals are trained and educated. So one of the things that the Fellows Program allows is not only for the company to be connected to the students who are in the roundtable, which is another thing that we have through the Clayton State Center for supply chain students, is they can connect with them. Also through that, we have the availability to allow the students to do data research, to do various different things to help and intern with these companies so that they get a flavor of the individual before they're ever hired.
All right, so let's go a little bit deeper there. You talked about a roundtable. What's happening there?
The roundtable is where the students, it's a student-run organization, and what the students do is they help us to be able to put on and present events to the logistics and supply chain management industry, where that we have various different 3 seminars, I think, a year, where that we invite job fair companies to come over. If you're hiring, we do job fairs over there. We also have educational events where that we just sit and talk with different individuals in the supply chain so that people can become more educated about what logistics and international trade is.
So if I am a company in logistics, whether I am physically located in Clayton County or Henry County or DeKalb, wherever I am, Center for Supply Chain Management and Logistics right here in Clayton County is it's a resource that I can take advantage of to find students who aren't just getting classroom knowledge, they are getting firsthand experience that is shaped. This is very important. Shaped not by the curriculum that the teachers have decided, but that curriculum is driven by input that business is giving to the university.
Through the center. Yes, that is correct.
So I think I think that we can't stress that enough, that these students, we talked about the truck drivers and the fact that, where do you get a year's worth of experience, right? Until someone gives it to you. But these students at Clayton State University are effectively getting a year's worth or however many years worth of experience, because logistics companies are working through the center and saying, hey, these are the express skills, these are the computer programs that we need our students to know when they come out.
Absolutely. And then any student who has successfully completed the ABCs of customs brokerage is recognized immediately in this industry as someone with 1 year's experience.
All right. So, Donna, I just can't thank you enough for stopping by here today. The last thing I want to ask you about is just, again, tell us why our high school graduate should consider coming into the logistics industry.
Well, because it's a great industry. But seriously, many students today, when they're graduating, don't have the resources to go to a 2 or 4 year college. Many of them need to go right into a career, and many of them want to go right into a career. This is a career that you can start right out of high school and be successful in. As I said, I didn't have a college degree when I started. I'm almost at a college degree, but it's in theology, not logistics. So you don't need to have a degree to succeed in the logistics industry. You need to have a desire to succeed.
I love that. It's all about the desire.
Amen.
So, Donna, thank you for coming. You can't leave without telling us how to contact Mullins International.
Oh, well, hey, I would love for you to. You can reach our website, Mullins International Solutions. You can reach me at Donna at MullinsINTLSolutions.com, or call me 404-429-6341. Logistics is a 24-hour-a-day business, and I'm available almost 24 hours a day.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today on this episode of Invest in Clayton. You can always reach us at investclayton.com. And remember, we are one Clayton.